Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Declaration of Independence at the 21st century. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the Declaration of Independence at the 21st century, Dr. BLovett. Dr. BLovett is an historian at Tennessee State University, a professor of history at that institution. And of course, Dr. Lovett, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Well, thank you, Dr. Haney.
And to tell you, Dr. Lovett, how delighted we are to have you once again on this show to talk about the information that we know that you've got a lot of. As a matter of fact, we've got a number of shows that we've done with you, and some of the shows that go back to 1995. But we still believe that they're of very, very significance dealing with the kind of information that you delivered to us. And I often think about the African American and the Constitution of the United States. I think you did that show with us back in 1995.
Yes.
But still it is, I think, one of the best pieces of information dealing with the African American and the Constitution that we have. And we'd like to do the same thing with this Declaration of Independence show. As a matter of fact, we've had you with 2 or 3 other individuals to talk about this same topic, the Declaration of Independence, over the many years. And what we'd like to do today is to really make this the mother of all Declaration of Independence shows, in the sense that we believe that it is the Declaration of Independence at the 21st century, to give you an opportunity to talk about it from that perspective. But before we get into that, Dr. Lovett, let's talk about Dr. BLovett and to have you to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of leading you to where we are today.
Okay. Well, I'm a native of Memphis, Tennessee. I was born and raised in Memphis, finished Booker T. Washington High School, went to Arkansas A&M State College for my bachelor's in history and political science. I went on from there to the University of Arkansas for my master's, taught at Eureka College in Illinois, and came to Tennessee State University in 1973. Returned to the University of Arkansas in the meantime and finished my PhD degree in history. My dissertation was on the Negro Civil War in Tennessee, where I covered black soldiers in the Union Army, contraband camps, and the general life of African Americans in Tennessee during 1861 to 1866, when the Civil War was going on. That is mainly my specialty area. But since then, I have dealt in African American history, mostly in the 19th century, and lately I've been doing some research and writing in the 20th century. The latest book I'm completing is a book on the biography of the civil rights movement in Tennessee from about 1935 to the present. And I'm also working on a book on the history of Tennessee State University. And I just completed an article in a book from the University of Arkansas Press on James C. Napier, who was an African-American leader in Nashville, and did another chapter last year on William Edmondson. That is in a book called The Art of William Edmondson, published by the University of Mississippi University Press, 2000. And 1999, my major book, The African American History of Nashville, Tennessee, from 1780 to 1930, was published by the University of Arkansas.
And so, Dr. Lovett, you've quite a number of scholarly works in all of these areas dealing with the African American experience. But let's talk about the Declaration of Independence itself. What is this document that was issued in 1776 declaring independence and et cetera? Let's talk about it from that perspective until the end of this particular segment.
Well, the Declaration of Independence, of course, is a sacred document to Americans because it was the document that proclaimed independence from England. And at that time, as you know, England was the owner of and the controller of the 13 colonies, which were under British control. And around 1770, they began to rebel against the British. And that came down to outright war in 1775. And in 1776, Thomas Jefferson and others sat down to put their feelings and their philosophy about the revolution in writing. And that became the Declaration of Independence, where these colonies do declare their independence and all allegiance to the British Crown. In some ways, it was a propaganda document because there were arguments that the document should go all the way to proclaim against slavery as well, since it talked about the equality and the fraternity of man and man's right to freedom and so on as an individual. But the language was changed at the last minute to not anger those colonies that depended heavily upon slavery, especially Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina and the colony of Georgia in South Carolina, which are the southern colonies at that time, as well as Maryland had heavy slaveholding during that period of time. Thomas Jefferson himself, called the author of the Declaration of Independence, was a large slave owner, and he was from Virginia, of course. And so they watered the language down that all men are endowed with the unalienable rights, you know. Really, it was much stronger than that. But they compromised, and if you read the Declaration of Independence, it sort of lays the blame of slavery upon Britain and says, you know, that Britain is responsible for transporting all these alien persons from Africa, you know, over to North American continent. But nevertheless, the language could not be changed in such a way as to deny that all men had the right to freedom and equality. However, as you know, slavery continued to exist in the 13 colonies, and that, of course, was a contradiction of the document itself. Now, as you know, we beat the British in 1780, and for all practical purposes, the Revolutionary War was over. It wasn't until 3 years later, 1783, that the Treaty of Paris was signed, and that treaty between the British and the 13 colonies did give them independence and also gave them land all the way to the Mississippi River that had been under the British. And so they have their independence. As a result of that, many of the colonies were cognizant of the contradiction and the hypocrisy of the Declaration that they were not living up to. And so Massachusetts in 1780 outright abolished slavery. And then so did New Jersey and New York and some of the other northern colonies. But the southern colonies did pass some emancipation acts allowing masters to emancipate a slave if they wished, but not the state itself. And as a result, slavery continued right on up until we got rid of it with the bloody Civil War, 1861 to 1865.
And so, Dr. Lovett, and I think you mentioned slavery in connection with the Declaration of Independence on several occasions. Let's talk about, and of course we're getting ready, I would imagine, within the next minute or so for our first commercial break. But let's deal with the issue of slavery in the colonies that was impacted. Give us some numbers in reference to this as a group of individuals and why this group would be of some concern to the Constitution.
Well, during the Revolutionary War period of our history, and we call that period, you know, from about 1775 up until the time that we write the Constitution and implement the Constitution in 1789, the one that we live under now. And from 1789 up until about 1830, we call that the New Nation period, when we were building a nation as a result of that Constitution. And at that time, during the Revolutionary War period, African Americans, believe it or not, were about 1 out of every 4 persons in the 13 colonies. By 1790, they are still about 1 of every 4 persons in the colonies, and 90% of them are slaves. The northern states are passing acts to gradually get rid of slavery, gradual abolition acts as we call them. The southern colonies are doing a little bit, but then along comes the cotton gin, along comes the demand for textiles in Europe, and slavery explodes in the South.
Let me interrupt here for this short commercial break, after which we'll come back and we'll allow you to continue that conversation. Topic is the Declaration of Independence.